Hello, basketball people, we have news. Let's go to more news about the Golden State Warriors. I ask you to give a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, as I am a Warriors fan. Executive Mike Dunleavy Jr. has stated that he will be making trade moves and that the Warriors urgently need roster improvements. In addition to wanting to trade Jonathan Kuminga, other players could be traded at any time, including Buddy Hield, Brandon Podziemski, and Moses Moody. Who else might the Warriors trade away? It seems obvious to everyone at this point that the Golden State Warriors are going to trade Jonathan Kuminga. However, outside of the former 7th overall pick, which players are most likely to be moved ahead of the February 5th NBA trade deadline? The Warriors are reportedly not keen on the idea of trading either Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler, but maybe they are more willing to part with some of their younger players who have not yet emerged as they may have hoped. 3 Warriors not named Jonathan Kuminga who could be on the move. Brandon Podziemski. Brandon Podziemski can be a polarizing player amongst Warriors fans because he can be so streaky. When he gets hot and finds his rhythm, it's easy to understand why head coach Steve Kerr and the coaching staff likes him. Yet when he's struggling and indecisive, it's hard to see how he factors into the team's future plans. The third-year guard has been playing better lately, so maybe he would make sense as someone who could be dealt for a veteran scorer who is more reliable. The Warriors need more offense, and in a perfect world Podziemski would be supplying that reliably, but maybe instead he could be an attractive trade chip. Moses Moody. Moody is another young Warriors player who has shown flashes of brilliance on offense, but he just has not been able to produce consistently enough to make the Warriors fully believe in him. At just 23 years old, maybe a team would be willing to take a chance on him and see if a change of scenery would unlock the next level he is searching for. Buddy Hield. Ideally, Buddy Hield would be that offensive threat to give the Warriors a reliable scoring option off the bench who lessens the burden on Stephen Curry and Jimmy Butler. Unfortunately, the veteran has struggled this season and is putting up career-worst numbers. Hield can be very easy to root for when he is playing well given his goofy personality and fun-spirited bickering with Jimmy Butler, but he has been more of an afterthought lately in Steve Kerr's rotation. Could another team unlock the version of Hield who was such a reliable three-point threat for most of his career? The Warriors need to make a move or two to try and push the team above the middling .500 play they've displayed for much of the season. Perhaps trading one or multiple of these 3 players, along with Kuminga, could help get an impact player for the rest of the campaign and moving forward. Warriors made a brutal Jonathan Kuminga mistake they can't take back now. The Golden State Warriors have to be thinking right about now that they wish they had sent Jonathan Kuminga to Sacramento over the summer in a sign-and trade. Sam Amick of The Athletic reported on Friday that the 2 teams discussed a trade last week, but that the 2030 protected first-round pick the Kings offered during the offseason is no longer in play, subscription required. Considering that it's been over a month since Kuminga played, and not because of an injury, it's not hard to understand why his value is lower than it was last summer. The Warriors don't have leverage, but once again, they have no one to point fingers at but themselves. But wait, it gets worse. Amick added that if a trade doesn't materialize that meets Golden State's needs, the team insists that they'll hold on to him past the deadline. Kuminga was supposed to be their top trade chip, which says a lot, and the Warriors need to find a way to upgrade the roster before the deadline to put themselves in a better position to contend for a title. If you thought that this couldn't turn into an even bigger mess than it already is, or was, you thought wrong. Kings no longer willing to offer Warriors a first-round pick for Kuminga. Amick did say that Golden State and Sacramento are expected to circle back soon on trade talks, but that the Warriors have shown no interest in the Kings' veterans. A third team may need to be included to get a deal done, but there is no guarantee that talks will make it that far. The front office seems to be acting like keeping Kuminga is an option if it doesn't get what it wants, when the time for taking that stance flew out of the window a while ago. Unless Golden State gets absurdly lucky, it won't get much of anything of value in return for a player who is racking up DNPs. Not even Sacramento is willing to overpay. Kuminga will officially become eligible to be traded on January 15th, and the initial belief after the Warriors re-signed him was that a deal would happen before the February 5th deadline. Now, there is uncertainty about whether a trade will materialize. If the forward had it his way, he'd already be out the door, but it's looking like he could hang around in the Bay for even longer than he wanted. Warriors get bad news on $175 million NBA champion trade target. The Golden State Warriors may no longer have a pathway to landing Anthony Davis before the February 5 trade deadline. According to ESPN's Tim McMahon, the 2020 NBA champion prefers to ink an extension with the Mavericks this summer. AD's preference would be to stay in Dallas and to get that extension this summer, McMahon told ESPN's NBA Today on Monday. Now, does that make sense for a team trying to build around a teenage prodigy, Cooper Flagg? You can answer that question on your own. Despite his preference to stay put in Dallas, McMahon noted that the Mavericks prefer to trade Anthony Davis, but could struggle to get a deal done before the summer. The Mavericks are trying to generate a good trade market for Anthony Davis, he stressed. That is difficult because of the durability issues, and I think more so the dollars. In a situation like this, Rich Paul, AD's agent, is going to be involved. They are going to want AD traded somewhere that is willing to give him a long, lucrative extension. Mid-season is going to be very difficult for Dallas to make all those pieces fit. Warriors trade target, Anthony Davis. McMahon's update lines up with recent reporting from The Athletic that an Anthony Davis trade could be difficult to complete before February 5. Davis, who has 2 years and over $130 million left on his deal, would need a suitor willing to go all in on him. As for Davis, my spidey sense tells me that he'll also be staying put, The Athletic's Sam Amick predicted on January 5. Mid-season trades are inherently more complicated than the summertime variety, and the Mavericks are in the midst of an organizational transition that makes this kind of deal difficult to navigate. The Athletic's Josh Robbins noted that a third or fourth team would have to potentially get involved for the Warriors or any other team to land Davis. Any trade involving Anthony Davis might require the participation of multiple additional teams, and a large multi-team deal could be so complicated that it would be easier to accomplish during the offseason, wrote Robbins. Warriors facing a predicament. The Warriors are reportedly aggressively pursuing frontcourt upgrades, with names such as Davis, Brooklyn Nets' Nick Claxton, Portland Trail Blazers' Robert Williams III and the Mavericks' Daniel Gafford earmarked as their potential trade targets. However, their unwillingness to move either Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler III has created a predicament in their potential dealings with other teams, per The Athletic. The Warriors are reportedly shopping Jonathan Kuminga, $22.5 million, Moses Moody, $11.5 million, Buddy Hield, $9.2 million, and Brandon Podziemski, $3.6 million, with hopes of making roster upgrades ahead of the February 5 trade deadline. They also have up to 3 first-round picks they can use. And yet, they haven't been able to drum up enough traction in trade talks due to their refusal to move Green or Butler. The Warriors might have to accept the fact that this current group, by and large, is going to be it, Amick reported on December 31. Here's why. Team sources say they're staunchly against the notion of trading either Draymond Green or Jimmy Butler, which creates quite a predicament when you're trying to match salaries of high-level players. Warriors reportedly have sniffed around center trade market for upgrades. Originally appeared on NBC Sports Bay Area. The Warriors appear to be doing their due diligence in their potential search for an upgrade at one position of need. It's unclear which positions Golden State will look to upgrade before the NBA's February 5 trade deadline, but with just over 4 weeks remaining, one position the Warriors have been connected to repeatedly is center. Specifically, Mavericks big man Anthony Davis, who Dallas reportedly called Golden State about, and who the Warriors haven't completely closed the door on pursuing. ESPN's Anthony Slater reported in one of the outlet's recent joint columns with other insiders, citing sources, that Golden State has sniffed around the center trade market as it continues to get inconsistent play from new veteran big man Al Horford this season. Biggest need, Al Horford, the Warriors' biggest offseason addition, has generated a tiny bit of rhythm after 2 months marked by injury and ineffectiveness, Slater wrote. If the surge continues, they could feel less inclined to enter the center market, but league sources said they have sniffed around. It's unclear what other centers the Warriors could pursue in potential upgrades, but Golden State for years has valued centers who can shoot and stretch the floor, which both Horford and second-year big man Quinton Post can do. One obvious trade piece the Warriors have in a potential deal for a center, or another position, is young forward Jonathan Kuminga, who can be traded as soon as January 15 and appears likely to be dealt after falling completely out of coach Steve Kerr's rotations. Unsurprisingly, Golden State reportedly has discussed trades involving Kuminga with numerous teams already, but as Slater reports, the Warriors are unwilling to take on negative value contracts in a potential deal if they extend past this season. As expected, they've had exploratory conversations with several teams about Jonathan Kuminga, but they've expressed an unwillingness to take on contracts that extend beyond this season if they view them as negative value deals, sources said. Slater added. That's been an impediment dating back to the summer, when they declined interest in Malik Monk from Sacramento in sign-and-trade talks for Kuminga. There still is time before the deadline for the Warriors to decide which direction they want to go in, but it appears they already are exploring the possibility of adding to a position of need. Draft Guru can't quit the Warriors as contenders for painfully obvious reason. You have to believe the Warriors are going to fix this roster. Right? The Golden State Warriors have found their footing as of late offensively, but they still remain squarely in position for the play-in tournament. They currently are sat with a 19-18 record and the 8th seed in a loaded Western Conference. For many, it would be relatively easy to count the Warriors out as championship contenders at this point in the season. They have dealt with significant missed time from their aging stars, and the surrounding role players have largely been lackluster. For draft guru Sam Vecenie, however, the full story has not yet been told. On the latest episode of the Game Theory podcast, Vecenie stood strong by his stance that Golden State should remain in the contender conversation simply by virtue of the looming trade deadline. They're probably either going to get a big or another scorer in the backcourt that gives them a little more firepower offensively. I do wonder if they can get to this conversation because of the fact that they're the team that we know is going to look different. Golden State turned their season around with their acquisition of Jimmy Butler at the trade deadline last year. The question that remains is if they are capable of pulling it off again. The Warriors are poised to make a season-defining move at the trade deadline. In 2024-25, the Warriors took themselves from a .500 team to a genuine playoff threat with their acquisition of Butler. During the time he played with the team, they were the league's best defense and were 8th in offensive rating. Although they ultimately landed in the play-in, the addition of a secondary, aggressive scorer changed their outlook entirely. This year, Golden State has the benefit of Jonathan Kuminga's 2-year, $47 million contract to attempt a similarly impactful move. Ironically, their needs are much the same. They must aim to either acquire a rim-protecting, floor-spacing center who can anchor them on both ends of the court, or they must pursue an additional scorer in the frontcourt to supplement Curry and Butler's efforts. So far, they have been linked to players such as Anthony Davis and Michael Porter Jr. However, the trade deadline is still a month away. There will be a number of unexpected names floated between now and then. With Curry nearing the conclusion of his career, the mandate upon the front office is clear. They must furnish him with the tools he needs to contend for a championship. They have the means and the salaries to do so. Therefore, as Vecenie says, the Warriors cannot be counted out until the dust settles on the trade deadline. The Warriors' fading dynasty is running out of time. Golden State is idling in the Western Conference play-in mix, and erosion across the roster has left little margin for error. On Monday, shortly after the LA Clippers' narrow 103-102 win over Golden State, the Warriors' interview room had an unlikely visitor. Terry Stotts, Golden State's lead assistant, had taken over the coaching duties midway through the fourth quarter, after head coach Steve Kerr was ejected for arguing a blown goaltending call. Those duties extended to post-game media duties. "I'm up here," said Stotts, "because I'm saving Steve some money." Indeed, Kerr probably saved a couple of bucks not verbally tattooing a fairly hapless officiating crew, swallowing the whistle after John Collins swatted Gary Payton 2's layup after it hit the backboard was far from the trio's only offense. More frustrating though was that Golden State isn't leaving Los Angeles with a needed win. These are frustrating times in the Bay. Monday's loss dropped the Warriors to 19-18 on the season, a perfectly mediocre record that has Golden State firmly entrenched in the 8th spot in the Western Conference. The offense, as it has been all season, was below average, 38% from the floor, 24% from three, while an above-average defense did enough to keep the Warriors in the game. It was a one-point game on the final possession, when a Jimmy Butler jumper missed to end it. "I thought we played well," Draymond Green said. "We couldn't hit shots." Before we dig into the issues, it should be noted that the Warriors aren't bad. Stephen Curry is still playing at an All-NBA level, shooting close to 40% from three. Butler is still a reliable 20-ish points per game scorer, and there are enough wing defenders on the roster to cause many teams problems. If Golden State was in the East, it would be a middle-of-the-pack playoff team. In the West, even with a road-heavy early schedule, the Warriors are in the play-in mix, with 8 straight home games coming up. Still, there is an undeniable sense that this team doesn't have enough. Optimism that Golden State could pick up where it left off from the 23-8 run it went on after Butler was acquired last season has faded. Green, the heartbeat of this team for so many years, has regressed. Jonathan Kuminga's days appear to be numbered. In recent weeks, Kerr has spoken of the team nostalgically, calling the Warriors a fading dynasty while saying that it is unrealistic to expect the team to compete with rising powers like Oklahoma City and San Antonio in the years ahead. Blunt, and, frankly, unusual, words from a coach, but accurate. Erosion on the roster is everywhere. Green can still have impact as an offensive hub and on-ball defender, but his perimeter shooting is a liability and appears more suited to a role as a small-ball 5 than power forward. Al Horford was supposed to fortify the frontcourt, but age and injuries have limited Horford, whose shooting percentage, 36.6%, has cratered. Butler has been solid. The 40.3% from three is an eye-catching statistic, but he's attempting only 11.8 shots per game. Meanwhile, the young players there to supplement them have not been consistent. Moses Moody is shooting a career-low 40.5%. Brandon Podziemski has leveled off. Quinton Post's shooting numbers have tumbled. Then there is Kuminga. A fast start to the season offered hope that Kuminga could rediscover a role in the Warriors' rotation. But Kuminga's playing time has declined every month. He played just 4 games in December. He's appeared to have lost the trust of Kerr and vice versa. Kuminga is eligible to be traded on January 15, and many league officials believe it's certain he won't be on the Golden State roster after the February 5 trade deadline. Will it matter? The Warriors were revived when the team acquired Butler before last year's deadline. But Butler was a veteran, championship-caliber player eager to play in this type of situation. Those players are not readily available. Kuminga still has value, with some rival executives believing a change of scenery will bring out the dynamic, two-way forward he has shown flashes of. But even the teams interested, Sacramento, New Orleans, are not willing to overpay to get him. Which leaves the Warriors, here. Golden State didn't leave Los Angeles discouraged on Monday. "I think the blueprint, to win, is right there," Green said. "Defend, take care of the ball and give yourself a chance." Said Curry, "I think our process has been really good on both ends of the floor." In this upcoming 8-game homestand, the Knicks are the only top 3-seeded team on the schedule. "We just got to lock in and want to do it on a nightly basis," Payton said. "If we can continue to do this for 48 minutes each day, we'll put ourselves in the best position to come out with the games late." Perhaps. The Warriors are still capable of flashes of brilliance. Curry remains one of the NBA's premier shot makers. Green is a strong frontcourt playmaker who can dial it up for big defensive stops. Butler has a history of leveling up in the postseason. If it can find some consistency, Golden State can climb the standings. If not, this fading dynasty will move one step closer to fading away.